Cool. Hi, I think we can let people in now. Mm. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Lost and Found this week. I'm so grateful to have folks on, and just a heads up, we are recording, so keep that in mind. And I hope either way you'll be comfortable. Um, yeah, happy Pride to folks who have been celebrating. And engaging in a little bit of joy this month. So this is a little bit, perhaps a little bit different for folks who have come to other Lost and Founds, or if this is your first one, is totally fine. My name is Marissa. I'm the artist in residence with Lost and Found and PPF. And today, and we'll see how long it takes, and it can be as long or as short as we need it to be, but we'll be focused a little bit more on imagination, joy, and the arts, and what I consider visualizing justice through the arts. So we're going to look at art, we're going to talk a little bit about art, and think about in connection with our own idea of justice and perhaps our own communities. So that's what we have today, that's on the table. Before we begin, if people are able to, I would love if you might share your name, your pronouns, and where you're located in the world at this moment. And one question, and we can sit with it for a few seconds, is what was your first recollection of making art? So can be anything, and if you can't remember, you can just share a time that you made art. So for example, my name is Marissa, I use she, her pronouns, I'm in the Bronx in New York City. I think a lot, of like we made like the palms out of turkey, like the turkey or the turkey out of hands, turkey hands. That was something that we did. As an art educator now, I'm like I don't love it, but that was one of my first recollections. So you can put in the chat, and and then we can just see who else is in the space. You're also welcome if you would like to come off cam or if you want to be off mic, if you want to share aloud what your response might be, you can also do that as well. Cool. Thanks for folks who are responding. They're coming in. We're seeing folks who have made cards for their parents or mother, drawing, short story in kindergarten. So wherever you might have made art, and just sharing that experience. And I think a lot like that we all are artists in some way, but oftentimes we get disconnected from it. So I have a memory of when I have a nephew, he's 13 now, but when he was 5 or younger, he told me he wasn't an artist, and he was not good at art. And I think people maybe heard me say this, and I told him, I was like, you're too young to be good at anything or bad at anything, you know? So just I love this question, just thinking of folks about how art is in us and how sometimes we get disconnected from it and the joy it might bring. So seeing someone drawing an umbrella, finger painting, someone still has in their TV room, awesome. So just some of the, the very early inspirations in art that we've made. So thank you. Yeah, and feel free to add more in the chat as we move on. So some words I wanted to share before we begin. I can read it, but I often don't. It might be nice to hear someone else's voice. I'm gonna give a few seconds. Would anyone like to read this quote from Walida Emarisha? And I'm gonna invite someone if you would like to. And yeah, so if not, I can. So I'm gonna give people a few seconds if anyone wants to unmute and read.
One,
Yeah, thank you.
when we free our imaginations, we question everything. We recognize none of this is fixed. Everything is stardust, and we have the strength to cast it however we will. To paraphrase Arundhati Roy, other worlds are not only possible, but are on their way, and we can already hear them breathing. That is why decolonization of the imagination is the most dangerous and subversive decolonization process of all. Walida Emarisha.
Thank you so much. And I know that's a huge, powerful quote, but I think in the context of creation, of some of the artists that I'll show you a little bit, I think it's something that really fits into what we'll see today. So thank you for that. And I think especially right now when times feel so challenging, so difficult, why art, right? Why are we thinking about creation? Why are we thinking about imagination? So just to put that into that context. Thank you. I have one more quote. It's a shorter one. If anyone wants to read, I invite you to read as well if you'd like.
Everything worthwhile is done with others.
Thank you so much. And this is Miriam Kaba. So also in the context of thinking about art today, how art it can be, it can be an isolated or like singular action, but also this idea that art, like community, can be done with others, and that's part of been my practice over the last decade or so. So I just if for folks to just also reimagine what art can be, and that it can be done with others and in community and in the space of reimagination. So thank you for that. So yeah, I'll have those two quotes. Moving on, and again, I know some folks, you're welcome to turn your camera on or off or to unmute. I have a few questions for you all, and so in the next few minutes, I'm going to invite all of you to look at a few pieces of art. There is a more, I'm kind of, there's a structured way of looking at art that me as an art educator have been like trained in. I'm going to open up a little bit more and to not make it so formal. But I wanted to invite people in a moment we're going to look at three pieces of art that I think embody this idea of justice and art that is also made an effort to think of a different way of looking at the world. Again, all art is up for interpretation. I teach, so I often think a lot with folks. Some art you might like, some art you may hate, but the idea that it brings up emotions, stirs something up in us, right? So some questions for y'all to think about. Just first off, just what do you see? What do you see in this image that I'm about to show you? It could be something as a color or just an like object that you see. There's no right or wrong answer. Another one is how does it make you feel, right? Like again, um, you know, what does it bring up if you feel comfortable sharing? What emotions come out of it? Again, only as much as you care to share. And then lastly, just even words or phrases that come to mind, right? Something doesn't have, you don't have to be an art historian or an art major, even like art, but it does this idea, it brings something out in all of us. So I'm gonna also put the questions in the chat, and then we'll come back to it every time. So I'm just gonna give a few minutes to look at a piece of artwork. I'm not gonna give too much context. I mean, we can talk about the artist after like their name, but I think it's better, and then you can also look on your own. But for me, it's most important just be present with the art as it is. So here's the questions, and this is the first piece. And anyone can chime in, and or you can put it in the chat, or you can just say aloud what you think. So, and I will, if unless people don't mind, I'm going to read some of the comments. Chioki, you said this idea of cruising on collapsed structures. Anything else you all can see? People being rescued in Ark from all the stuff, junk. Any other things that someone might see, notice in this image? One thing I'll mention that I've seen, and one thing also to mention is I've seen these images a lot, but every time you can always find and explore more. Someone's saying that it looks like the boat is saving a forest, maybe the natural world. Um, when I've looked at it before, at first I didn't notice they were collapsed structures, right? And they are. And also this idea of someone once said to me, is it a sunrise or a sunset, right? Or is it like, you know what? I mean, I guess you could technically figure that out, but like, so this idea of like, is it hopelessness or just like, or hope or despair, right? So that's something I noticed. If you look a little deeper, you can see this like stains on this boat, on this ark. Um, Again, I don't want to give too much context, but this is an artist in Monrovia, and you can do research on your own if you'd like, a Syrian artist. So using their skills, using their art to talk about the destruction of their home, to bring attention to what is happening there, and to bring attention to migration as well. So just something, again, you can always explore and look more into it, but this idea of using their art to bring attention to something that is so painful to the rest of the world. So, and again, anything you put out here, that is your first reflection, and I'm grateful for the comments so far. Yeah, we'll take a look at another one if that's okay. And again, what do you see? What does it make you feel? What emotions does it bring up? And any words or phrases that might pop up in your mind. I'm going to invite you again, and I'll keep repeating this because I think it's also important to hear this. Um, I don't know if anyone was here last week, but we looked at an artist. I'm showing another piece by their work, of their work. Um, and just for this is Jess X Snow. So please tell me what you think, what images, how does it make you feel, and we'll do the same. Just have a little reflection on this. Sorry, and as you look, I just want to apologize. I usually have it full screen, but I want to see your chat, so I apologize. You see the background of the Canva, so. Sorry, I'm just going to read some comments. Migration barriers peculiar to humans. Looks like a hummingbird filled with birds and humans floating. Sorry, I can't see that word. Floating in the air behind the bird, flying over a fence. I'm so glad you noticed the people. Like again, I've seen this many times, and I think it took a few times to see the floating bodies at first, or I immediately noticed the birds, but then I didn't notice the bodies. So thank you for saying that. So, and Ben, I apologize if I'm saying it incorrectly. You can correct me. You say that for the Ohlone people whose land I currently live, the hummingbird was the most sacred bird, and this gives a new perspective on that idea. One thing I noticed, and again, it's it's a notice, but it's also kind of my interpretation. I noticed that the boats can't cross, right? Like this barrier, but like the collection of birds and people can like go over, at least it tips over. So it made me think back to the quote that we had about everything worthwhile is done together. This idea of collectivity, right? Think of organizing. I think of people, yeah, coming together to make change in some way. So again, it leaves this emotion of like hope for me, um, and others might have a different interpretation. And anything else? Looks like there's a human in the upper part of the wing. in the white upper part of the wing. I'm not sure if I see it, but you're welcome to say more, or if other people see it. But yeah, a sense of deeper purpose in the hummingbird, almost a sense of mission. Yeah. And now I'm looking at it closely, and then again, I'm noticing things I've never seen before because of your comments. So thank you. Absolutely. So all of this, um, again, we don't know what this is. Just like Snow's work, and I welcome you to take a look. But I love everything that we've collectively brainstormed together about this piece alone. So I'm going to move on to one more piece, if you all don't mind, unless anyone has anything else to say. Love the comments that you've been sharing. And like, lastly, what do you see? What does it make you feel? Emotions does it bring up? And any words or phrases that pop in your mind. This last piece is by, I don't know if folks have seen their work, Fabiana Rodriguez. Um, she works for the Center for Cultural Power based in Oakland. Sorry, I'm not supposed to say too much, but this is one of her pieces. And I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit if I can. Let's see more. And Sherry, I think I'm saying your name right, mentioned beautiful butterflies, not certain what to feel about the humans. Is this something that they're dreaming? And thank you for the question. There's also, please feel free to ask questions. We may not have the answers to them, but please feel free to post them. One thing I noticed I'd never really thought about before was if you look at the very right left-hand corner with the people, you can see this like barbed wire that it's actually I think mixed media collage, like it's a collage of different images. The butterflies that look like they're glued on, and then also the suns I didn't really think about until doing this with you all. So transformation, someone mentioned, um, absolutely. Trying to do so I can see a little bit more. Yeah, I hadn't noticed this before. Um, yeah, I appreciate that honest feeling of someone mentioned that normally butterflies make you feel happy, but not certain how I feel. This is somewhat ambivalent about this. You're welcome to say more, or if other people have that similar feeling, please feel free to share. Um, um, Ben says, I like how the butterflies are flying over an abstract background out of the minds of the cartoonish people. It's an interesting mixture of abstract, figurative, and cartoon. Yeah. Yeah, abstract, multi-layered. Um, I appreciate people saying that, you're not sure how to feel about it. Generally, Fabiana Rodriguez's work is like, she popularized it. It's not a new thing of like butterflies being symbols of migration or freedom, but she definitely popularized the migration is beautiful movement in art and art as in protests. And so people, if you ever come across their work, sometimes they've been used a lot in protest and things like that. I don't know if someone has seen that before. So if that maybe adds a little bit another layer to it, but doesn't have to. Your feelings are your feelings. But definitely, I guess another example, like the others, thinking about, how do we talk about these things that are so important to us, especially now more than ever around migration and around immigration in this country. But one thing I do want to share is um, now more than ever, this use of art is so important, and also this idea that like it was also important, it's been important, and it's going to continue to be. And while it's we've seen so many people talk more and more about what is happening to migrants, this idea that people have been doing this work for a long time and using art. So I just wanted to amplify that because I think sometimes I get caught up in the moment of now and the present, but also acknowledging all these folks that have been doing this work. Um, oh, and then thank you for the butterflies, and then there are three humans. The contrast like there between the two. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you may notice also within the butterflies, there's the faces as well. I'm sorry, it's a little hard to see. So that just adding that in there. Thank you. So I wanna move on because I have a few other things I want to do with folks. But thank you so much for contributing. I know it's weird look at art, with folks maybe you don't know as well, but I really appreciate all your honest thoughts and feelings. And like I said, it helps me look at it in a different way as well. And I hope again the idea that these are pieces of artwork um, that are used to think about justice to help people kind of hopefully think about the world in a different way, right? So I'm gonna invite you, if you have a pen or pencil in this next part, and you can think about the context of what we just talked about or not. I would love if we can and will share this if you're willing, is think about a community that you might want to live in or be a part of. So you may not live in it yet, or it could be if it's your ideal community. It could be an entire community, it could be one building, a playground, a theater, a school or hospital, or anything else that you can think of. I would love if folks could maybe take a few minutes to write and think about, what do you see in this place? What do you envision this new world or community to be? Ideally, it's a community you want to live in, right? What are the sights? What are the sounds? What are the smells? Um, yeah, just take a few minutes to write and think and dream, you know? I know sometimes it's hard to dream in the reality we're in, but I would love if folks would take a few minutes and then if folks are willing and want to say aloud and share, I'll invite you to do so. So that's the prompt, and yeah, I'll put in the chat just in case. But please take a few minutes, and if you have any questions, let me know. You can chat me if there's something confusing. Maybe like 2 more minutes, then we can come together. So yeah, I know that we're getting a little smaller, but also if anyone feels comfortable enough to share, and maybe even a few words about what did they envision about this community that they want to be a part of, what aspects, I'd love to hear if you feel comfortable, and you can put it in the chat, or you can just talk on mic. Yeah, please.
I can say first. I just wrote down actually a place I actually kind of fantasize about. My wife and I both fantasize about retiring to the Andorra, which is a microstate in the Pyrenees, and we're attracted to it because it hasn't had a army for 1,000 years, and we really are attracted to the idea of detaching ourselves from a militarized economy. And it's also very walkable. The main city is walkable, and there's a lot of great places to hike. So that's kind of our fantasy. There's some downsides. It's a long way from the ocean, and it's a long way from the parts of Northern California that feel like home does. But that's kind of our fantasy where we'd like to live.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. And also, I mean, in your world, you could also put it next to an ocean.
That's true. I could invent it. I could make it. I could put Andorra right next to an ocean. That would be okay. Yes. If I was inventing this place, it would be next to the ocean, and it would be, yeah, close to home. Yeah.
Thank you. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Anyone else?
I don't think my video is working. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you though.
Um, I live in upstate New York. I live on a small lake. Um, I don't lock my car. I don't lock my house. I don't lock my car. We are a very welcoming community. We had a huge gay pride parade yesterday, and over 100 vendors and food trucks in the front lawn of a mansion that is now owned by New York State, which I thought was really wonderful that New York State opened its front yard to this. And we've also welcomed our doors to refugees. And I personally own a small house that I'm in my second family from people from Iraq. And the first family became citizens. Rosgar was an interpreter for our army, and he fortunately escaped. Or he would have been beheaded. Many friends of mine who have been over there have said. And he now works for the Defense Department, and he bought his own house now. And I now have a second family from Iraq that the father had been a long distance truck driver and didn't like being gone 3 weeks out of the month from his family. And I'm now trying to find him a job as a school bus driver in our local schools. But I'm a member of a Presbyterian church, which I think maybe most of us are. And we passed the resolution that Israel is committing genocide against Gaza unanimously, which was really wonderful. And so I feel very privileged to live in a community that is so accepting to everyone. And we certainly have a lot of things we need to work on in this world with what's going on in Iran and Sudan and to say nothing of Gaza and just the denial. We keep pouring money into Israel. I don't want to get on that right now. But anyhow, you know, the I don't say I live in an ideal world, but the world that I live in is and I think of that a lot with people who are their houses are being bombed, ICE is coming into their house and stealing their children and their family. ICE is not taking away criminals. ICE is taking away people who have no reason to be what is happening to them. So I could go on and on and on, but I'll stop.
Thank you for sharing like a place that you're a part of and does exist. I feel like that's so refreshing because oftentimes like it is a privilege, but it's also I'm grateful that exists for you. And I think a lot about how can we have this in other like places and other communities, and what would it take? That's kind of why I pose this kind of activity in terms of thinking about what are these things that we want, and what do we need to do to envision it. So I appreciate that. Oh, Chijoki, did you want to talk a little bit about what you wrote, if you want, in the chat? Or you're okay. You can read that if you want, or other people can read that. So I think maybe I'll just close and wrap some of the thoughts you all put up there. Like I just, as you went, and we're just gonna talk a little bit, do one more thing, but my invitation is, like to continue to think about what are these spaces that we want to create, like how do we get there, who are the people involved, like those are often things I think about and dream and think about how the imagination takes place in all of this. Like I know, and again, I invite you all to try to dream and imagine. I don't want to ever lose that, given everything that is going on in the world. So that's kind of my thought to you all. So, but thank you for sharing. Lastly, I also want, I know some of you have said it and articulated a little bit about what's in your hearts. But yeah, any closing prayers or anything that people want to share before we leave this space together. And I invite you to put it in the chat or say it aloud if you want. Anyone that you're thinking of, or any groups of people or any communities that you're thinking of right now.
Mhm. Along those lines, tomorrow at 6:30, the Cayuga Syracuse Presbytery is holding a live Zoom meeting with a woman who runs a gender affirming clinic and a mother of a transgender boy. And Zach is also going to be on the Zoom meeting. And needless to say, we will not record it for the safety of Zach. But I'm hoping many people come and are really inspired by the journey of this young man. He's still in high school.
Thank you. I also wanted to uplift and pray. Like I have I had a roommate for several years, and I was looking at the Jewish Voice for Peace Instagram, and they popped up, and they gave this like you can check it out, and like talking about as a Jewish person, what it means to be amplifying and fighting for Gaza. So I'm really, I actually messaged them. I was like, you're so brave. I'm so proud of you. And I just want to say I appreciate them and putting themselves on the line. And yeah, so I pray for them that they like, I know that everyone is safe and everyone is free, but I am thinking about folks who are brave to raise their voices. So just praying for all of them and all of you who continue to do this work. Anything else? I'm going to close with one last quote. I really like this. And I also like the art. I think it's really nice. If I can find my share screen. Sorry, give me 1 second. Here we go. This is Miriam Cobb again. When something can't be fixed, then the question is, what can we build instead? So I will leave you all with that. Thank you for coming, and thank you for taking the time to be here in the virtual space. Yeah, and so hopefully, and please take care of yourselves, and hope to see you soon.